You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and I'm so pleased to welcome onto the show Jesi Bender, and author of the upcoming book, Child of Light, out this August. Jesi, welcome to the Art and Philosophy podcast here. I'm really excited to chat.
Thank you. Me too. I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay, I'm an avid reader. I got an advanced copy, A Child of Light, and I just wanted to tell you like my feels like from it and what really I love the book and but I want to tell you there were pieces of it that felt so unique as a construction of a novel, like there was experimentation visually, an introduction of language, and there's some chapters that structurally are different from the others. And, I think it's always risky, right? I think sometimes if things feel like too experimental and you're like, where's the there? Like, what can I hold on to? And, but I felt that this combination of like disparate elements was really appealing to me. And there's a couple paintings in there and such. But my goodness, this book's set in the past. We're talking spiritualism, electricity. I was like, all right, let's get into like electricity, and so there's these it feels like universal but older like powers, and so it is me talking like why I was just so drawn to Child of Light, and excited for you to have this released. I believe the release date's August 12th.
That's right. Yeah.
2025. And so we don't know each other, but Jesi, like, where does this one come from for you?
So the original inspiration, I'm in love with Utica, New York. I'm trying to think. It's to me, it's very haunted. You drive around and there's all these relics, these huge Victorian mansions and beautiful buildings and parks. And there was a lot of money and intellectual community there at one point, and it went through some rough times. and so it's got this weird balance of kind of like left in the past. And there's this one house we drive by on Genesee Street all the time. It's this big red brick Victorian mansion, and I always call it my house. So I did some research about my house, and the person that lived there at one point when it was built did make caskets, and I like horror movies and folklore and stuff like that. Yeah, so I wanted to like go off of that. And one thing that really interested me was just what we're saying about how you can have two things happening at one time that seem like they're polar opposites of the same. They don't seem related at all. But when you look at them closely, there's tons of things connecting them and stuff. So I felt that this big push towards spiritualism after the Civil War and all the death that was going around the United States, everywhere, I guess, but particularly in the United States. And then at the same time, this big surge of scientific advancement with particularly right at when this is set in 1896 of domestic electricity. And so things finally coming into the home. There were these weird, gigantic pillars that had like public lighting at nighttime and stuff. And they weren't common, especially up here, so far away from like New York City or some major city. And anyway, we're just finding these connections between electricity and the spirit, and how these cultural events really had a lot of more intersections than first glance, maybe.
Yeah, there's a powerful, there's it's weird, using the word power, but like I could feel again, like in the introduction, like being brought into the introduction of these technologies. With at the time, now we flick on the lights, right? And
Yeah.
maybe once every 10 years, we say, "Holy shit! Like it's really cool." Like the lights turn on, but back then it was like power of God.
Right.
Like I bring light, and you could feel that in the energy there, in that atmosphere to help you understand of. You think of lightness, light, and dark, and of course, spirits, and
Yeah.
ghost, and manifestation. Um, I I was familiar with the history of the area. Actually, in the 19th century as well, I'd studied a bit, and I was always fascinated by like the revolutions in science and in thought. You had very radical, you see, the rise of women's rights. You
Yeah.
have all these dynamics of massive change, vegetarianism, like the
Yeah.
idea of healthy living, totally like revolutionary thought. And people, and the preachers going through, and, there's so much energy up there. Now, I haven't
Yeah.
spent much time up there, but so much energy up there, and the setting, it just seems like this is like the center for everything. And you mentioned with Utica right now. I want to ask you about that house. What, like, when you
Yeah.
saw it, like what went on? Like, was it an immediate thing? Like, I think I'm like, that's my place, or what was the, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't know because there are literally Genesee Street, especially if you get down closer to the water. It's just one after another. These beautiful, beautiful houses and like really ornate and just gorgeous. I've always liked Victorian architecture, but I don't really know what it is. They had stained glass, but a lot of them have stained glass. It has this giant turret that's kind of formidable in a good way. It's like it's imposing. So maybe that's why. But for I don't know for a long,
Yeah.
long time, I've always been like that. Oh, my house. Can we go look at my house and just driving by this random person's house? And um, yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but it
No,
is beautiful.
yeah, and there's aspects like I think of like there was thinking around the time of how you structure a house and its
Yeah,
meaning. I remember even the evolution of like that, the idea that like building an octagon house was like
yeah.
connected to larger things. So it wasn't just like, where you lived. It was like this needs to be structured in such a way towards, I don't know, it's fascinating to
I
me,
I
thinking about
there,
it that way.
100%. There's this house really close to me literally I live in the woods in the middle of nowhere. There's a little town called Georgetown that's like the closest gas station to me, and that's all that's in that town. There's a house there called the Spirit House, and it's like if you get a chance, you should Google it. It's so cool. It looks like some people call it a wedding cake house. It's super, super ornate, but the way that the person built it, they were um driven by ghosts or whatever, but driven by the spirits.
Yeah.
And it has a central, it's not a chimney, but it's like a central air shaft that's so that the spirits could enter the house and everything.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really, really cool. It's not open to the public, unfortunately, but you can look up some historical. Anyways, there's lots of that around here. I think this this push from we had like the Erie Canal and then the railroads starting bringing people further out west and everything. I think you just got this kind of pipeline through New York to that brought all of these um, different things from the burned over district history out and all these radical. Not far from me is the Brigham Young, where Brigham Young grew up, and and all these people. So there's all
Wow.
these things happening at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for bringing us there. We'll chat some more about the book, but we try to take a few swings at some big questions here. And
sure.
I talk to artists, and it's like beneath it, I think one of the questions, like anytime we see art, is kind of like, maybe the why, or like, where did this come from, but or
Yeah.
what it is. You're a creative person. What do you think art? What is art? What do you
Yeah.
think art is?
It's, I'm very open with that definition. And part of the reason I like writing and as I think words are so interesting. And I think meaning making is like the most interesting thing a person can endeavor to do. So I like that words, we think there's like, this is what this art means this, but really everything is malleable and everything is depending on context and stuff. So I definitely come from experience where art is any form of expression that someone finds beautiful, and beautiful doesn't have to necessarily mean aesthetically pleasing, but just it
Yeah.
reaches them. So it could be really horrible and horrific, like a horror movie and everything, but it speaks to people. And that's what I think's most important, any type of expression. To honestly, it sounds trite to say, but I think art is the most important thing we do. And I know people
Yeah, I'm with you.
don't like that sometimes, but yeah, and I think one thing I'm particularly interested in is trying to find new ways of saying things. I think we get stuck, especially now at this point of history and commercialism and everything, we get kind of stuck in like, this is what this has to be. And I'm totally not interested in that. I can appreciate things obviously from its historical impact and stuff, but people writing now and stuff, the people that I'm interested are trying different things and trying to say something new, even if it's hard to grasp, like you were saying earlier. There's a fine line where it totally obliterates all meaning. So
Yeah.
it's anyway, that was a bit of a ramble, but I love art.
This show is pro ramble.
Okay, good.
100% pro ramble.
That's great.
Independent podcast, what we say goes. Um, um, Tell us. I'm going to jump back over to the book.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit, if you could, about the story. The characters were just
Oh, cool.
really pulled you in. But could you just tell folks, with the book coming out later this summer, just generally, about the characters and kind of, a little bit of the backdrop.
Sure. So this is set in, like I said, 1896. It goes basically over a whole year from a winter to another winter. And the main push behind this book is that a privileged family, has kind of lost all its money and all of their money. And now they have to kind of actually live as a family for the first time. They don't have, nannies. The mother can't, the father can't live in a separate house from them. They're in a little bit of straits, and they come together in this house in Utica, New York. And the main characters are the mother and the father. Both of them are French. One's from from Quebec, and one's from Paris. And they come together circumstantially, which is relationships come together in a way. But the father is trying to pursue his scientific endeavors, and he needs money, and the mother comes from a very wealthy family, but she's looking to kind of get out on her own and be her own person. So he kind of offers this escape for her. They eventually the father meets a real person, a person who existed in real history, named Goulard, who's a French electrical engineer who basically created alternating current electricity. So a big deal. He's a big deal.
Yeah.
He doesn't get taught as much. At least I had never really heard of him. I think he lost his marbles towards the end of his life, and he ended up in a institution, like so many people. A lot of this book's actually about institutionalization.
Yeah.
So you don't hear about him, but that's what I hope is kind of cool, is that besides the family, almost all of the other characters are real historical figures. And then the rest of the family is Aunt Brett, who's the protagonist. She is a young girl. She's 13, and she's kind of trying to understand what the world is. And now she's trying to understand her family. She has a chance to actually have a family. So that's really exciting for her. even though she doesn't understand really all the dynamics going on. And then there's
Yeah.
kind of a language barrier too, especially with her father who only speaks French. And then she has an older brother whose name is Modeste, but he goes by George. So yeah, those are the, and there's
Yeah.
she befriends a young girl named Celeste who's an orphan who lives at an orphanage. They used to have these beautiful, really huge homes for the homeless around Utica and everything. There was a lot of that kind of charitable stuff happening back then, and those are, I think, the main group.
Yeah, the Brett character, deeply fascinating, and yes, kind of interacting with the world that's like partially understood, and
Exactly.
even adults are partially understanding like the dynamics of like um, everything that's going on. I enjoyed the flowing into some of the French language. On my mom's side, my nana was from up in Canada and spoke French
Yeah.
fluently. I remember as a little kid. She wouldn't go back and forth too often, but I'd be like, speak French to me because I probably still do the same thing to people. So,
Yeah.
Just go ahead, speak. Don't just say stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. That felt really comfortable, and I enjoyed that piece of it.
Cool.
There's a section in the book. I was wondering if you could read, and it's a bit later in the book. It's chapter 19, and uh, I just wanted to ask you to read it because I thought it really kind of captured some of the what I say is like the fantastical elements that are brought into the story, and I just love the language. So I was wondering if you could read that.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, this is happening towards the end of the book, and it's really Ambrette thinking about her mother, and her mother is the kind of represents spiritualism and this kind of more magical side of life to her. So maybe she was only real to Ambrette, or realized by Ambrette, because she earnestly cared about her existence. She could only think of one other living soul that cared as much about Maman as she did. Both her body and mind moved abandoned, frenzied. She ran, trying to find Lizzie for confirmation, but she was nowhere to be found. From the basement to Maman's boudoir, Ambrette could find no one else in the Memnon house. As a last gasp, she stole into the attic, calling Lizzie's name, only to find the trunks and boxes had been rearranged. Ambrette's nest was destroyed. The mourning garb in the attic had been removed, a nothingness in its place, the empty floorboards underneath the leaded window that watched Genesee. Ambrette couldn't breathe. She sat on the floor, in the spot where she had outfitted her burrow, and tried to steady herself. She stared at her lax fingers curled around the whites of her palms. They sat as dead weight in her lap. There were times when she was quiet enough, she could still hear the bells ringing deep inside her head. She pictured the tin skin of a generator on Papa's workbench, thought about the magnitude it held inside itself. Generate, harness, conduct, move, move, move. Hot cylinder, manufactured organ, the coils wrapped tightly around its iron core, lines pointing both toward and away from themselves. She saw the glow of a spirit. It was a series of wires wrapped around the bulbs of her eyes, like lightning frozen inside her veins. It subsisted, buried in the blackness that ran through the heart and the brain. It purred, a buzzing, and it popped, occasional zap, like an unseen animal deep inside a forest. It is hidden in nooks or underbrush, and you feel its presence. You can hear it rustling, susurrus. It lives in the black, and it never dies.
Thank you.
No problem.
I feel the energy on the page and off the page too. Folks, really think about pre-ordering Child of Light coming out in August. Um, uh, you're a great writer, Jesse. It's really
Thank
an
you.
honor to have you on the show. Um, what's the role of art? Like, what's it supposed to do for humans? Like, do we, it sounds like we need it, but like, what's its role?
I think for me, it's just communicating. It's a not just communicating. The whole point is trying to connect with people. So I think communication is the largest role, and I think another role is to trying to express things in new and different ways. I think those are the two most important roles of art. I see when I was submitting this, I had a lot of feedback about people who were like, I don't in the experimental world that not interest I'm not interested in any, I want things about now. And I was like, well, this book is about now. I feel like
Yeah,
historical things are still about now, even if it's not set now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm still trying to say things about now and trying to find a different way to say it. So that we can make even more connections, I guess.
yeah, and yeah. Now, now is not, well, whatever. What is now like?
That's true.
But but I again, going back to this time. I mean, everybody wants to drop back, back there, but the profound energy is impossible, and the possibilities of the human, coming like this type of idea of like, truly like enlightenment or technology to handle the issues we have in front of us. What was dark
Yeah.
is now light, and sound is traveling quickly. It's just such a dynamic period. I've always been astounded by going into it and looking places like upstate New York as as a primary area for a lot of this activity. So yeah, maybe there's a lot of now, but
Well, I think too. I agree 100%. I also think too people have a or I will speak for myself. You have you're kind of taught a very slim view of what the Victorians were like. And just like you were saying before, there were like sex cult Victorians that,
yeah.
there were people doing a whole bunch of
It
crazy
was
stuff.
wild. It
Right.
was wild. Like what you ate, what you did with your
Right.
body, you
Yeah.
know?
So you think of them as like the super buttoned down, super like, and there are a lot of crazy things going on. We're just not exposed to it. So it very relevant to me today, where it's like we want we want us to look uh I don't know. I don't know how much into politics we want to get, but it feels very much like today, where it's public perception is not necessary reality, I
Oh
guess.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about a movement towards, perception, like perception,
Right.
this, um, yes, for sure. And the advancement of all the technologies that were predicated on, things that are covered in the book, being able to
Yeah.
send sound far away and, we see, video and sound and, yeah,
100%.
it feels contemporary, but also like there's something like within the world that exists there, I think has been so maybe not looked at as much or not seen maybe for some of the elements that it contains. And for me, I've always been attracted to like, for me, I've always been attracted to the radical because ever since I was a little kid, there are components of society where I say it's 100% wrong. Like, this is
Yeah.
not the way we should be conducting ourselves. And so I have an absolutism about like, I'm accepting of things, but I'm seeing like with
Yeah.
culturally and some of the things is, yeah, I was trailing off there too. Um,
No, I agree with what we're saying. Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit more just about your creativity. This isn't your first book or first writing. Um, just what areas have you explored or like going forth after Child of Light? Like as a writer, what are you looking at?
So I'm working on a novel right now about Grace Brown, who people might know from uh, the Dreiser novel. Now I'm blanking on
Sister Carrie,
not Sister
an American
Carrie. Oh yeah, American Tragedy.
American Tragedy, brilliant book.
Yeah, yeah. So that was based on this Grace Brown thing,
Oh,
and actually she's literally a hill away from me in the middle of nowhere again. So it's working on
really?
that. Yeah, it's really that's where she grew up and everything. She was murdered in the Adirondacks, but it was
Oh,
yeah. So it's kind
no. Yeah, I mean, no, no, I'm sorry. Like, I mean,
no, please.
no, an American tragedy is like the type of thing, like, who the hell talks about American tragedy anymore? But or Dreiser,
Yeah,
but that mystery, that story, that
yeah.
whole thing, and they made that. Of course, I view it as a quirky film, A Place
It's
in the Sun,
yeah,
with Montgomery Clift and
yeah.
Liz
Liz
Taylor.
Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And there's something really great about a 50s take on anything. Anything from that time is just there's a there's a
I
a certain lens on it. So yeah,
I love I love that movie, but it's a weird balance of like I'm like I end up truly disappointed in parts. But love, and I even think even with the stars and Montgomery Clift and what was going on with him, and
yeah, yeah.
there's a lot
That's
to
true.
that.
Yeah.
It's a great book in American tragedy. I think Dreiser's one of the lost. I don't know if he's lost, but like American treasures of you know
Yeah.
realism, naturalism, and realism. And around this time, like writing stories about, I think generally, I don't know if you'd agree, like person in the world,
Hmm.
woman or man in the world, big structures, big things happening, people being swept up in things, maybe
Yeah.
structurally, in American tragedy. So, hey,
Yeah.
everybody, it should be on your local used bookstore shelf. If you go to the
It's true.
local
It's
used
true.
bookstore, hey, check for Dreiser and Sister Carrie and American Tragedy, and you're in a good shop. Um, I have to ask the big question,
Yeah.
and I think your book's about this. So, why is there something rather than nothing?
Oh, man. Uh, I think I don't know. I think that a lot of this book is trying to look for something. It's doesn't know what that something is, but it's like it's looking for that meaning because of or else it veers towards death. There's quite a bit of death in this novel too. So I think for me, that's what this whole book is about. This little girl, she's on the verge of becoming a woman who's trying to find something to make her life make sense, basically.
Yeah, looking for
Yeah.
something. Looking for
Yeah.
something. Yes, everybody again. Child of light. Yeah, Jesse is. It's super cool to talk to you about this stuff. One of the things another thing I wanted to ask you, basically was about the the combination of history of like this bit of realism there, with the fiction, real characters and such. I've
Yeah.
always found that to be such a like. It seems like super fun to me, but
Yeah.
also tough to pull off. And I think you did. How is that working in like composition? There's historical text, there's historical things,
Yeah.
historical characters, and
Songs and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, how do you work all that to have this reality in this book?
I think almost everything I've written has been this kind of experimental historical novel. And what I do is I do a ton of research. In my day job, I'm a librarian and like
Yes,
yeah.
I love
So
librarians. Librarians are the vanguard for all of us. So thank you.
thank you. I always tell people I wanted to go to school forever, but I'm a poor kid and stuff. So I just was like, oh, I'll become a librarian, and it's basically like going to school
Heck
forever,
yeah,
So
love it.
it's so I do a ton of research and I take a ton of notes. And what I'd like to do from that is I write out, kind of get my story that I want to happen, and then I kind of place my notes where I want it to fall in the story. So for this novel in particular, there were just so many interesting people that fell into that category we were talking about earlier, where you would not expect these people to be walking around, and also the impact they have. So, like at one point, the mother goes to see a talk with Susan B. Anthony. I'm hoping everyone knows who Susan B. Anthony is, but then there's these tiny people, I should say unknown people like
Yeah. Yeah.
Beverly Randolph, who was a real occultist black guy walking around in the mid 1800s, like preaching these crazy things. And there was this guy, Cyrus Teed, who formed this religion where it said we're all inside the earth rather than outside the earth looking out. The earth is really, we're in like side a big rock, basically. And
Whoa.
so just these really interesting people, and I'm like, I gotta include them. They're so interesting. I felt that way too. There is, if anyone ever goes to Utica, there is I'm sure it's got a complicated history. There's no doubt, but features quite prominently in this book at the Utica Insane Asylum, which is now called something much more PC. I can't call it what it is, but the building itself is so creepy and
Yeah.
and it's gigantic, and you're just like, wow. I guess my point is, you get these things that you're like, wow, how many lives were impacted by this person or this place, and it feels like you're like, I gotta say something about it, and they're just the interest in it makes them creep in at least some capacity. So
Yeah, I'm over in Oregon, about like 25 minutes outside of Salem, Oregon, and folks might be familiar. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which
sure.
the Salem Hospital.
Yeah.
And there is there's one piece in there that I really like. Obviously it tries to teach, as humans are still trying to make progress on mental health and
Right.
understanding and how to help people, but being inside that space, and there's this cool piece that they have that I just love within, I guess it's technically a museum, but they have like the TV monitor like you would see in the room in One
Yeah.
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating to
Exactly.
what is health, what is unhealth, what is sickness, right?
Well, right, and how tenuous that is. 100%. There's a little talking about the TVs. There's a little interesting fact. There's something called the Utica crib, which was invented in Utica, that used in institutions all across the United States, and it basically is a crib with with bars on the top, so it's like a casket you can see through. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, like how. Anyway, and so it's weird when you see these remnants of people's lives, and I just feel like you're saying it's fascinating. It's easy to picture yourself sometimes in those roles with
Yeah.
those details that you have,
Well, and all the things around these areas too is like the prominence of cures, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
around that time,
Yeah.
it's like cure all, whatever it might be, and just kind of like this massive hunt for like understanding certain things, but then looking for solutions to uh,
Yeah.
our problems.
And electricity was one of those things too. There are amazing cartoons at the start of domestic electricity where it was like, it's like the start of AI, and people who are like, this is evil and it's gonna, drag you to hell. And
Disrupt systems, and yeah.
exactly. And then on the other hand, like doctors are like, oh, lady, you have a headache. Maybe you should try electrocuting yourself. You know what I mean? It's like, okay. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting because, the same thing's happening now, just with a different part,
Yeah, yeah, something
Yeah.
that feels massive, and again, manifestations, long line of
Yeah.
technologies. But I think there's something. I said it before. I think there's something very unique, very specific to the time period in that area and in the country as a whole. Not to discount other years, but primarily
Yeah.
concentrated in the Northeast. And it seemed like the other piece that I really enjoy about that period, there was the idea like that anything is possible, that I think,
Mhm.
maybe culturally we're too cynical about now. Or if somebody says that, they'd be like, nah, I know
Yeah.
how I'm going to get a recurring bill about whatever that,
Right.
whatever,
True.
whatever that is. Jesse, where do we find your stuff? how do people get this book? Where do they go?
So the publisher is Whiskey Tit. They're out of
Yes.
Vermont. And then there's also, it'll be available, the distributor is Asterism Books, which if anyone who likes experimental writing or indie press, I'd really encourage them to go to asterismbooks.org. It's the home of some of the coolest publishers doing things today. So I'd encourage them to go there too.
I find something about it where, you're around books all the time, but
Yeah.
I find it, and my analogies too is with music, right? So we're introduced with we see a lot of different things culturally, and things are popular, but within writing and within music, I mean, the amount and the ability to search and find right now is absolutely incredible. So it's like this kind of self curation that is possible around all this nowadays, that is
Absolutely.
at our fingertips, maybe.
Yeah. It's people get into, but there's such a commodification of attention and everything, and people get into habits because we've got a million things going on. But there are these huge communities that right outside of Amazon or right outside of whatever, Barnes and Noble. So
yeah. Thank you for being a librarian. Thank you for for writing. And like I said, I really hope those who are listening take the opportunity to enjoy the fascinating book, Child of Light. Really capturing the energies of the period, and idiosyncratic, right? Which I enjoy, like, as far as how that's pulled together. So kudos on your work.
Thank you.
And also look for, oh my gosh, what was I just want on the American tragedy bit, what was the name of the real case?
Grace Brown.
Grace Brown. And so I'm once you said that, I kind of lost it on American tragedy. Who the heck do you talk about American tragedy nowadays? It's been 20, 25 years. I put on the film once in a while, Place in the Sun. I ditch at the ending, and I call it a day, but
it's worth a watch too. Yeah.
It's worth a watch. It's got Montgomery Clift and Liz Taylor, for crying out loud.
Well, and who's the
there's another. I know.
Girl? Yeah.
Shelley Winters.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm gonna, like a moth to a flame, I'm gonna be sucked back into putting that one on this evening. Jesi Bender, thank you so much for your time and for the art that you create, and again, for the fourth and fifth time, Child of Light, folks. Check it out. Coming out August 12th, 2025. And best of luck to you, Jesi, and can't wait for the next one. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, great. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesi. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.
And listeners, to stay connected with us and our guests, visit somethingratherthannothing.com. Join our mailing list for exclusive updates and access to guest-created art. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review on your podcast platform. People really read that shit. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our community across the planet. This is a global show, and we like to give a shout out to our many listeners across the world, including many listeners in Canada, Spain, Germany, UK, Argentina, Brazil, India, Thailand, and so many more places. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Something Rather Than Nothing Podcast for behind the scenes content. And the best way to help the show is to tell your friends about us. If you love it, they'll love it too. Tell your friends who love it. We love you. This is Something Rather Than Nothing Podcast.